You know, in the NFL, a single trade can change everything. It can define a whole era for a team. One move can be that final, perfect piece for a championship run. Or it can become a legendary cautionary tale, a decision that sets a franchise back for years. Today, we are diving deep into a move that is absolutely in that high-stakes territory, a deal that sent shockwaves through the AFC, the Indianapolis Colts blockbuster trade for all-pro cornerback Sauce Gardner. So that's really the big question here, isn't it? It's the one that has to be keeping folks in Indianapolis up at night. Was trading an absolute king's ransom for arguably the best cornerback in the entire league a genius move, that final checkmate for a title? Or was it a catastrophic overpay, a desperate gamble that mortgaged the future for a present that, well, just never showed up? It is the ultimate NFL risk-reward scenario, and we're going to unpack every single angle of this thing. Okay, so to really get why this was such a massive deal, you gotta rewind the clock a little bit. Before this trade happened, the Indianapolis Colts weren't just some playoff team. No, they were sitting right at the very top of the AFC standings. They had a dynamic offense, a really solid opportunistic defense. I mean, they looked every bit the part of a real Super Bowl contender. They were one of those teams that felt like they were just one elite, game-changing player away from being unstoppable. And that's right when their general manager, Chris Ballard, decided to push all his chips to the center of the table. And here it is, the stunning terms of that all-in move. The Colts sent 2 future first-round draft picks and a really promising young wide receiver, A.D. Mitchell, over to the New York Jets, and in return, they got their guy, Sauce Gardner. Now, let me be perfectly clear. Trades involving multiple first-rounders for a guy who's not a quarterback are incredibly rare these days. You just don't see it. This is the kind of price you pay for a franchise QB. So by making this move, the Colts told their locker room and the rest of the league one thing. We're not building for tomorrow. We are trying to win a Super Bowl right now. So what was going through GM Chris Ballard's head? Well, you can hear it in his own words. He was totally convinced this was a rare shot to get a unique talent. He even asked his front office, would we get this guy in the draft? And the answer they all came to was a hard no. So in Ballard's mind, this wasn't just trading for some player. It was getting a 24-year-old foundational piece, a blue-chip cornerstone who, and get this, he thought still had room to get even better. He wasn't just trading draft picks. He was trading the chance of finding a player like Sauce Gardner for the real thing. So let's break down that logic piece by piece. First, they get an elite corner who is, and this is a direct quote from head coach Shane Steichen, sticky in coverage. That means he can just shadow the other team's best receiver and basically erase him from the game. Second, he's only 24 years old. This isn't some short-term rental. He's a guy you build your defense around for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And Gardner even said he saw Indianapolis as a long-term home. Third, and this is so important, the front office really believed their own success would make those picks less valuable. They saw themselves picking at the very end of the first round, which made the trade feel like a bargain. On paper, you know what? It's an aggressive but perfectly logical strategy for a team trying to win it all. And this is where the story takes a sharp, brutal turn. All those carefully laid plans the Colts had, their Super Bowl dreams, their entire season, it all just completely unraveled almost the second after the trade went through. The final piece of the puzzle, the move that was supposed to guarantee their spot at the top, became the first domino in a stunning, catastrophic collapse. 7. That's the number. The Indianapolis Colts lost 7 of their very next 8 games. It's just a staggering statistic. Almost unbelievable, really. A team that was sitting at the top of the conference, that had just made the boldest trade of the year, suddenly couldn't buy a win to save their lives. That confidence, that momentum, that swagger of a contender, it just vanished in a matter of weeks. And all that was left was confusion and a whole lot of frustration. And this slide right here, it just lays out the complete 180 the franchise took. I mean, look at this. Before the trade, they're on top of the AFC, looking like a real title contender, and those future draft picks they sent away, they looked like they'd be low-value picks in the late 20s, maybe even 30s. But after the trade, they lost 7 of 8, their playoff hopes were completely obliterated, and all of a sudden, that 2026 first-round pick they gave to New York started looking a whole lot more valuable. So, what did this collapse actually cost them? It's more than just a few tally marks in the loss column. To really understand the gravity of this, we need to quantify the consequences. We have to look at the real, tangible assets that changed hands, and more importantly, how their value completely shifted because of that disastrous losing streak. This is where a football trade turns into a painful lesson in asset management. 16. This is the number that has to be keeping the Colts front office up at night. Because of that late season collapse, that first-round pick they traded to the Jets, it landed at number 16 overall in the 2026 NFL Draft. What Chris Ballard thought would be a pick in the high 20s, at worst, suddenly became a premium mid-first round selection. That is a massive swing in value, an outcome the Colts never ever planned for, and a huge, unexpected windfall for the New York Jets. And this, of course, leads to that painful question that's going to hang over this franchise for years. It's the great what if. A top 16 pick isn't just a lottery ticket. It's a golden opportunity to land a future star, to fill a major hole in your roster with a young, cost-controlled player for 5 years. So, what kind of talent, at a position they really needed, did the Colts potentially miss out on? All right, let's get specific, because this is where it really hurts. The Colts have a glaring need for young, dynamic, sideline-to-sideline linebackers. If they had kept that 16th pick, a player like Sonny Styles from Ohio State could have been right there for them. Styles was a key piece of a national championship team, a tackling machine with 100 tackles and 6 sacks his junior year. Or, hey, maybe they would have gone after C.J. Allen from Georgia, another top linebacker prospect. Just for some context, look at who the Colts have taken with similar picks recently. Laiatu Latu at 15, Tyler Warren at 14. These are impact, day one starters, the exact kind of player you hope to get in the middle of the first round. Look, a trade like this is like a boulder dropped in a pond, right? The ripples go everywhere. It didn't just change things for the Colts, it created massive ripple effects that totally altered the trajectory of the New York Jets, too. The futures of these two teams are now completely linked. So let's take a closer look at the fallout and really see who ended up with what when all the dust finally settled. Now, before we really dive into the damage for the Colts, we have to remember exactly who they got. They got a true bona fide shutdown corner. In the NFL, that's a defensive back so skilled, so dominant one-on-one, that a defensive coordinator can just leave him on an island against the other team's best receiver and basically take that guy out of the game. That kind of talent is incredibly rare and incredibly valuable, and by any metric you want to use, Sauce Gardner is one of the absolute best in the world at his job. So here's the reality for Indianapolis right now. On the one hand, the upside is clear. They have an elite shutdown corner who's consistently one of the league's best at preventing separation. But on the other hand, the downside is huge. First off, Gardner only played 2 full games after the trade because of a nagging injury. That is a disastrous return on that kind of investment. Second, they're now on the hook for his massive contract, over $30 million a year, which really limits what they can do with the rest of their roster. The bottom line is pretty simple. If these injuries stick around and he can't stay on the field, this trade is an undeniable, franchise-altering bust. Now, let's flip it around and look at the Jets. Oh my gosh. From their perspective, they absolutely made out like bandits here. They got what turned into the 16th overall pick in the 2026 draft, another future first-round pick in 2027, a talented young receiver in A.D. Mitchell, and, this is critical, they freed up over $30 million in annual cap space by moving Gardner's contract. This isn't just a good trade for them. It's a franchise-altering haul of assets that gives their front office incredible flexibility for years to come. And that number 16 pick is the absolute crown jewel for New York. It gives them so much power to address their biggest needs. They've got long-term questions at quarterback. They could always use another explosive receiver for their young passer. And now, after trading away Sauce, they've got a brand new hole at cornerback. This one pick lets them address any of those critical areas with a top-tier, blue-chip prospect. And check out the caliber of players they could be looking at with that pick. If they want another receiver, Ohio State's Carnell Tate is projected to be available, could be a perfect fit. If they want a direct replacement for Gardner, Clemson corner Avion Terrell is an elite prospect with shutdown potential. And if they feel they need to take another swing at finding their franchise quarterback, a guy like Alabama's Ty Simpson could be the pick. Thanks to the Colts' collapse, the Jets have a whole menu of high-level options to choose from. Okay, so let's put it all on the table side by side one last time. Here's the final tally as of right now. The Colts received one player, a 24-year-old Sauce Gardner, who brings all-pro talent but also carries big injury risk and a massive salary. The Jets, on the other hand, got a treasure trove, the 16th overall pick this year, another first-rounder next year, a promising young receiver, and a ton of cap flexibility. When you see it laid out this clearly, the balance sheet looks heavily, maybe even frighteningly, skewed in New York's favor. And this whole thing didn't happen in a vacuum. The Colts' rivals in the AFC South aren't just standing around watching, they're making their own moves. This divisional arms race puts even more pressure on this Gardner trade to work out. So before we give our final verdict, let's take a quick look at how the competition is shaping up around Indianapolis. So real quick, let's see what's happening around the division. The coaching carousel is definitely spinning. Down in Jacksonville, the Jags are trying to get their running game going again by hiring Brian Picucci as their new run game coordinator. Over in Tennessee, the Titans are going for stability, bringing back a bunch of key coaches for special teams, tight ends, running backs, you name it. There was also a little bit of reporting drama where an initial report said Greg Scruggs was joining the Titans staff, but that later turned out to be inaccurate. Every team is scrambling to get an edge, which makes the Colts' high-risk, high-reward bet on Gardner all the more fascinating. All right, so after all that, after breaking down the strategy, the shocking collapse, and the huge fallout for both teams, what's the final verdict on this trade? Can we call it a success? A total failure? Or is the ink on this story still far from dry? The truth is, it's complicated, and it's still a tantalizingly open question. Ultimately, the entire legacy of this trade for the Indianapolis Colts boils down to this one simple, yet absolutely monumental factor. If Sauce Gardner comes back, stays healthy, and plays like the all-pro shutdown corner he can be for the next 5 seasons, he could absolutely be the guy that leads them to a championship. And if that happens, the price, as steep as it was, will be worth it. But if the injuries linger, if he can't stay on the field and live up to that massive contract, the cost will be seen as astronomical, a historic blunder. And that's the question we'll leave you with. Is this the gamble that finally brings a Lombardi trophy to Indianapolis? Or is this the trade that will have fans and analysts asking what if for the next decade? Only time is going to tell. So what do you think? Was it a stroke of genius or a franchise-altering mistake? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive here on NFL Nexus, do me a favor and hit that like button and definitely subscribe so you don't miss our next explainer. And hey, while you're at it, if you're looking for something fun for the football fans in your life, check out our coloring books. They're great for kids and adults too. You can find them using the link in the description or by just scanning the QR code on your screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.